answer, but why should anybody who isn't doing a PhD on the early church fathers even care about this part of history?
Yeah, well, I think in some ways the reason I wanted to do a PhD on this kind of subject, and it really is around the kind of stuff we're talking about, my PhD. The reason was I think one of the great sadnesses and dangers I see in the church and in Christians today, and I partly say this having done lots of work in student ministry, both in kind of Christian unions and universities and in local church, and a bit of youth and all that kind of stuff, is just people who really do the thing that Athanasius just warned against, which is have an idea of God already in their head, and then try and live the Christian life and finding themselves discouraged and frustrated at themselves as they sin, wishing they weren't as weak, and not thinking they're not very good Christians. I'm really feeling just about clinging on, and that God is basically up in heaven a bit frowny and saying, I wish you lot would just do a bit better. And I mean, that is, in some ways, that's what Athanasius is saying. You can't do that. You can't just imagine God from your mind, or just inherit a picture of God from the culture you happen to live in and assume that it's right. And he can see it does damage. It does damage to your Christian life if you walk through the Christian life really not sure if God loves you very much, and saying, well, I know Jesus died on the cross for me and all of that, that's great, but what's behind that? What is God like when he's not kind of done this detour of grace and mercy and kindness and all of that? When Jesus has gone back to glory and he's sort of gone back to being God again, once the kind of little episode is over, what have we got? And the thing about this period in church history, I think, with Athanasius and with Cyril and with a bunch of others, really what they're trying to get at is Jesus is God himself in the flesh, walking among us. He is Emmanuel, he's God with us, and therefore he's actually shown us what God really is like. And you really can look at Jesus and go, so that is what God is like. And if we do that, which is what Athanasius is saying, signifying God from the Son and knowing him as Father, well, we're able just to sort of let all of our doubts and fears melt, because God is the one who freely gave himself up for us on the cross, who submitted himself to being hungry and tired and tempted for our sake. And he's not stopped being like that. It isn't a detour for him. It's not just a little chapter in his biography. This God, the God revealed in Jesus, is the real God. And I think, I was going to say most Christians need to know that. I think all Christians need to know that. I've been studying this for 6 years. I think I still don't really believe it. And reading some of these theologians, and of course those who take up their arguments more recently and bring us their insights, I feel it's helped me so much, just pastorally, personally, to believe God is like Jesus. And that makes a massive difference for the Christian life. And I think it makes a massive difference for our evangelism and our outreach. It makes a massive difference for how we relate to one another. If I know that God really is gracious towards me, and not just saying he is in the gospel, then being something else. If God really is gracious and kind and forgiving to me, that changes the way I can exercise those things towards you and my family and friends and so on.